5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com, MGoBlog Roundtable. And we actually have one of the MGoBlog members at the table this morning, live in studio, Seth Fisher, with us. I'll start with you, Seth, since you're here in studio. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm here because the books are going to be here. I have Victor's on the first shipment. Just made the turnaround in Chicago right before we got off the radio a minute ago, and they are heading this direction. So by the time the show is over and I get it online, I'll have a copy in my hand.
And so you guys do an annual magazine, but this is special. So as people know you. Well, first let's do the pleasantries. BC, Brian Cook, how are you this morning?
Good.
Doing well. Craig Ross, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. Excited that their book is finally here.
So other than the subject matter, the championship, we know that makes this special, but the book itself, this is more special than any magazine you guys have done to this point.
It's a yearbook. I think it ended up costing me $25 per book just on the cover, because look, all the elements that we have on it. The idea is I want you to like this. It's a way to attach yourself to that national championship again, right? This thing is gonna be out. I imagine not a lot of them are gonna end up on shelves. They're gonna be on. It's gonna be on the table, and you're gonna pick this thing up and you're gonna be able to feel that cover. You're gonna be able to just put your hands on all the little footballs that signify all the teams, and that yellow championship in the corner, and the stripes on the back of the helmet are kind of like the cover design. So it's even just that. And then you're going to be able to open to any page and just remember just trashing Nebraska. Open it again and there's drawn up, one of your the Edwards runs in 2022. So we couldn't do it without Aiden Hutchinson, right? Like you can't tell that story without going back 3 years. So it's a 3-year book. So every game in that era is detailed. Right, we have the game column. We have like our thoughts afterwards about it. Maybe like an article afterwards about something that happened in that game, and then we also have like every major player and coach who was involved in that have their own section. So you can go and remember Blake Corum and get a feel for like Donovan Edwards at that moment. So there's you can read the whole thing through when you get it. You also, for years, I figure you're just going to want to open this thing up and turn to a page and get it. And it's not like any other yearbook championship thing that I think no one's ever done like a 3-year book just for to talk about that one season and bring you right back to where you were at that moment. And when no one's going to spend this much just making that kind of quality material and everything, like this is something special because Michigan fans are special and our readers are special. And because they exist, we can make this.
In some sense, it feels like the timing is late, but the more I think about it, the timing couldn't be better. I mean, maybe this is the perfect time for this to come out. Just a thought.
That's not when I contact bookstores and they ask if they want to carry it. That's not what they thought is the most perfect time for it. But I think that the fans are gonna, you'll get it. People who ordered on Kickstarter will be getting it first, and theirs should be arriving. Well, people can pick it up tomorrow night if you bought it online, and I think you can still do that if you go to mgoblog.com/victors and get in on the last minute, because that's going to close soon, and the pre-sale is going to be done, and then we're going to have like a little quiet moment, and then we'll have them in stores. It'll be at Underground Printing first, and there'll be other places.
Yeah, it is. I think it's kind of the timing of it is a bit of a metaphor. The last season has been sustaining, and the book now kind of is sustaining at a time of the season where it's like, kind of need to be picked up. The book can pick you up at this time. So I think it's actually pretty good timing for the book to come out.
I mean,
To Craig's point,
next week, two things could happen. Michigan could lose to Ohio State, and then you get this book right afterwards, and you'll open up and be like, okay, I can take this. It's fine. I remember, or Michigan could beat Ohio State, and you're gonna open this and be like, it was all there.
Show me them scoring some points. Show me them having some sustained offensive drives.
I said this last week. Fred Jackson beat Ohio State twice, so Kurt Campbell can pull it off too.
Yeah. Let's see it. Let's see the offense get some things together in this game against Northwestern, which plays some solid defense. And I do want you guys' take on these Wildcats. And so, Brian, I'll start with you. This Braun-led Northwestern program, on one hand, you feel like Northwestern under someone not named Pat Fitzgerald isn't quite as scary. On the other hand, this Michigan team, you feel like any team you face is going to be scary, right? So what do you make of the Wildcats coming to town this weekend?
Well, they're so bad. They're so bad. Like Michigan has offensive issues up the wazoo, and Northwestern is just the same. But the differences here are that this is just a blip for Michigan, and this is how Northwestern's lived since I think Kane Coulter graduated. So, I mean, I've watched chunks of several of their games, and like whatever problems Michigan has on offense are mirrored and improved by Northwestern. So like if you check their fancy stats, they're like 119th in expected points added per play, which is about 30 spots worse than Michigan. So like whatever you think about Michigan's struggles this year, Northwestern has it much worse, and it's going to be a rock fight. But I just don't really see Northwestern having much of any ability to move the ball.
Yeah, I see it as a rock fight. Also, the Northwestern offense is the same as Michigan's, only worse, and their defense though is competent. So I'm not saying they're a great defense, but they're a competent defense, and I think Michigan will have some trouble. I don't see a lot of points getting scored.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Lausch is their quarterback. They kind of went through the same journey where Michigan did, where like they started with one guy and ended up with someone else, and he's discount Davis Warren. He can get a couple passes completed. He can actually break the pocket and run a little bit. But I think he had his best game against Ohio State. I also noticed though his games are a lot better against teams that run a lot of man. Like Purdue was his best game this year. Purdue was Purdue, but when he can see what he's got to do and get the ball out fairly early, then he's a lot better. And against his own defense, he's really struggled all season. So if Michigan is at all like Michigan has been the last couple of years on defense, especially with the defensive line they have. I mean, they got more problems on the offensive line than we have right now. They got injuries up in there. They got both their left guard. They're on their third left guard as a true freshman now. And like that guy's probably better than their center, who's also replacing a guy who's injured. The right tackle is pretty bad. Like Caleb Tiernan's good. We should go after that guy in the portal.
Yeah, I mean, they went after him in recruiting. They tried to recruit him out of high school, right? That's one thing that Northwestern was beating Michigan for on the recruiting trail is offensive linemen until recently.
Well, they had Kurt Anderson.
They had Kurt Anderson.
Well,
hey, maybe that. Well, I don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. Now, but as far as you. In the aftermath of everything that went on down there, but Kurt Anderson could coach, and he could recruit along the offensive line. You think about Slater a couple years ago. You think about Skoronski, a couple of first round picks. They could really move you on the offensive line, and now they can't. Kind of like Michigan, in that regard, right? But they do. You're talking about Lausch. They got a quarterback who he can run around a little bit. I mean, there's that. What about that piece of it?
I mean, he runs around as well as Davis Warren. The only difference is that they'll actually do it with him. So they have zone reads in their offense. They'll have him keep a little bit. Against Ohio State, he did break the pocket a few times and turned like a 10-yard loss into a 4-yard gain. And that's really the only thing that's working for that offense. I'm not really enthralled with their running back, who's, Northwestern senior running back. He's got a gazillion injuries and looks like, a broken down truck at this point. And tight ends, they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, but like neither one of the tight ends are very good. They've got a guy who reminds me of AJ Williams, who's just like just a blogger, right? He looks like an offensive lineman out there. He's like their 3rd tight end. You run him out all the time, but like none of them are really that effective. Like Brian said, I don't think their offense can move the ball. Their defense is pretty sharp. They're 36 in S&P. They've got a couple good players. I think the defensive tackles are just which was a come down. They were supposed to be pretty good, but like they just play well together. I think that David Braun's a really good defensive coach, and when Northwestern's done with him, will be a good defensive coordinator somewhere. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see what kind of patches. What are the patches for Michigan offensively? I think that there are a lot of ill-conceived things in the last game. I don't think it was just a matter of using Alex Orji. I think it was how they used certain personnel. I don't think it was a matter of some of the past concepts that they called. I think it was you got a quarterback that you never really nurtured in a way that you were able to make him comfortable. I think your line, you don't have them comfortable in blocking movement. And so you got to believe that Northwestern, watching that tape, you're going to see a lot of movement early in this game. And so we're going to find out what the patchwork was for that in the first quarter, like the first couple series. We're going to see what Michigan did when it comes to how they block movement. Because Northwestern, coaches are copycats if nothing else, Brian Cook.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm concerned with the fact that it seems like every single stunt that an opponent has run this year has gotten through Michigan's line. There's really not a whole lot of awareness that they're coming. There's not a whole lot of ability to pick them up, and that's, I think, been a big problem with Michigan's run game. So a defense that moves around, that is trying to pull one over on Michigan, seems like it's well positioned for success. And Northwestern has been very good against the ground game this year. They've been a poor pass defense, but they're top 20 in various metrics as a run defense, and that doesn't spell great things for Michigan's offense in this game.
I have a question for you guys. You may know, if the stunning and the games by the defensive line are causing Michigan problems, would it be better if they were just running zone plays? Or, might that solve some of the problems? Or
no, because that's what a lot of the issues are, is that they'll just run an inside zone, and one of the interior offensive linemen will block the defensive tackle, and an end will loop around. And that's a large reason that you're seeing guys who seem unblocked just kind of pop up in the middle of a rough play.
Okay.
Well, what would help is if Michigan had any outside run game to speak of.
Yeah, but they don't.
And they don't. So,
they tried that. Was that 2 games ago? And that I think their first 3 offensive plays in the first 3 series were all attempts to attack the edges, and I think they all lost yards. So.
Yeah, so they had some time to work on it, to focus on that specifically. It's at the end of the day, it is assignment football, and so hopefully they were able to really hone in on those assignments to the point where they can be more competent in this game. And they didn't blow it every single. It's not like every single time there was no time. Every single time they got through a lot, and a lot of plays are blown up, but it's not like everything was blown up. And so they had some opportunities, and there were times where the play call or personnel usage was wrong. And I think that was maybe my bigger issue. It's like when you had the opportunities to get things done, maybe the play call or personnel usage didn't maximize those opportunities, and that can't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. They got Donovan Edwards, the cover of NCAA football back this year, and they used him no differently than they would if he was Khalil Mullings. And then they run a whole quarter without Khalil Mullings. So it's like they looked at their quarterback situation, and we're going to go back to the offseason and relitigate that. But that's where a lot of these problems started.
Well,
They didn't know what they had with their players. It's like, how do you be this bad at knowing your own guys?
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm most intrigued by something Sharon said. He said, I don't have the exact quote, so I'll just give the gist. He said, I'm interested in, or I'm challenging the coaches to come with their ideas or their play call ideas. I won't take that to its literal. I won't take that literally. Like every coach is going to come with plays, but I do think that, I do think that there's probably some different input from a play call perspective that is justified here to look at. And I wonder if that'll be something that we see.
Well, does anyone think that just throwing a bunch of plays together is going to make the offense better? I mean, I don't think so. I don't care what the plays are. It seems to me that what's been lacking is a sense of offensive structure. I mean, coming into the season, it seems, as I think Seth just pointed out, it seems like they should have had a plan for Donovan Edwards. That would seem to be, what
Yes.
the offense should have been doing, not just throwing a bunch of plays out there. I mean, but I
Yes.
could be wrong.
But I think that goes hand in hand with having some different ideas, some different input. I think maybe that's part and parcel with having some different voices in the mix.
Well, along those lines, I mean, I noticed that Biff Poggi is in Ann Arbor this week. Did you notice that? I mean,
I saw him say that. I don't know that will. I don't know that will affect what we're talking about, but
the ideas that we're talking about, they need to have a plan. Who are your guys? What are they best at? And then design an offense around that. You can't, even with a bye week, you can't fix that now. You fix that in the off season. So, they're going to get through the rest of the season. They're going to probably, like the thing, like Sharon says, okay, challenge the guys to come up with more ideas. Like, okay, more grab bag. I want one idea. I want to know who this team is.
Well,
and then do something based around what you're good at.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not talking about more ideas from outside the confines of what they do, but within the structure of what you have. I'll just keep going back to what we saw. A wedge play from 4 yards out. Why are we doing that? That's just so it's not you use Alex Orji. It's that why are we running a wedge play as a 4-yard play? Why are we doing that? Or why are we running it's not that we used Alex Orji on a QB pin and pull. It's that why did we use a quarterback pin and pull with Peyton O'Leary as the pinner from a standstill position? Why are we doing that? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So maybe you have some different ideas that can come in and say, okay, this is if we have Bredesen as the pinner, this makes more sense.
Or I mean, you have somebody you're working with these guys every day. Ron Bellamy knows which receiver wants to go in and hit somebody and which receiver is not. So if you got a guy like that, that's something the other team doesn't know. He goes in motion. I don't know if it's Fred Moore. I don't know, right? But like
was CJ Charleston, and then he got hurt because Charleston was acting basically exclusively as a little blocker. But I mean, none of this is really going to change the fundamental fact that you don't have enough good players. Like Michigan, they had a chance to drive the field, and on both of the first two snaps, Davis Warren gets a ton of pressure, rolls out, And then he doesn't have that ability that JJ had a year ago, right?
Mhm.
He's off platform and moving, and his arm strength he's not going to throw like a 20-yard rope to Roman Wilson in the back of the end zone, right? That's just not going to happen. So you can talk about we should run this play or that play, but fundamentally the blocking is not good enough. The quarterback isn't good enough, and
True.
Michigan is always going to struggle. Now I do have similar frustrations. Like they got down to the 6 and they ran an inside zone and they ran it with Donovan Edwards. And it's like, you're at the 6-yard line. And Donovan Edwards got 2 yards. And that was a play where Khalil Mullings was probably getting 4. And that changes your equation just massively. And the deployment of your best offensive player, who was apparently very healthy, and he's playing behind Ben Hall. And I mean, no offense to Ben Hall, but he has no business playing over Khalil Mullings this year. And I think Khalil Mullings has demonstrated that. And he was downhearted in the post-game press conference, and it's just I don't know, they're grasping at straws, and the straws they're grasping at don't really seem to be sensible to me. So I'm pretty frustrated. I'm frustrated by the fact that every time they ran a waggle against Indiana, it was downloaded, like, because it doesn't look like anything they actually run, because they don't run stretch. So when you
you have to run stretch to run the waggle.
Then they're like, I know what this isn't, a run. So you get immediate pressure on the quarterback and there's nobody open. And I'm just like, they talked about making parts of the offense look like other parts of the offense, and they just really haven't done it. And like, this is all these things kind of compound, right? So your offensive line isn't very good. So your quarterback looks worse. So you're installing trick plays to try to move the ball, and you're not working on fundamentals, and it just cascades. And it's as soon as you get one bolt that shears off, the other bolts are going to go pretty quickly. So I feel like talking about what they can do for the rest of the year is almost beside the point, because there's nothing that they can do to salvage this. And what's going to happen is that their offense isn't going to be very good for the next 2 or 3 games, and they're going to try to fix it in the offseason. And honestly,
well, they got to win this, but they got to win this. See, I hear what you're saying, and someone made a great point in one of yesterday's shows, and forgive me for not remembering who it was, because I want to give them credit. I'm not talking about being good or even being average. I just want serviceable. I'm just saying, and they said, Sam is talking about not a Lambo, just give me a Prius. Just give me a Prius. I just want them to win the Northwestern game. I just want to score from the 7-yard line. That's all I want them to be able to do.
Well,
score from the 7-yard line. I mean, they couldn't score from the 7-yard line.
If you just lean on people with Khalil Mullings, you'll probably beat Northwestern. And I just, his deployment this year has been insane, flat out. And like, they keep like, there was a moment after the USC game where they were like, yeah, this guy's earned it, and then they forgot about it. And like, it's hard for me to say things that are polite about what they've done with him this year. And they can just push and push and push, and they'll probably pick up enough points, and Northwestern isn't going to do anything, and they'll win the game. But is it going to be a pleasant experience? No, it is not. So, like, it's almost beside the point to me. It's like, does it really matter if they beat Northwestern? No, what really matters is what happens in the portal in a little over a week. Good God.
I think they need those 15 practices. They need to be able to evaluate this roster. So
my concern is that the more they evaluate the roster, the worse they are at figuring out who their good players are. Maybe they need fewer practices.
I mean, that's not insane. Maybe they need fewer practices and more time looking at film for who they can take in the portal. Because they gotta be there with quarterback. They got to be there with a couple of offensive linemen. I mean, they got work to do there, because it ain't going to get patched over with freshmen coming in 2025.
Can they can they get a new offensive coordinator in December 1st? Like when does that happen? Because like part of this is the
I mean, that's a question that we have to ask. We don't know what kind of changes that they're going to make, if
yeah.
any.
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't think there's any question that there are going to be changes. I don't think there's any question.
And the fact that we're at week 11 and everyone knows at least one of the changes is an indictment on what's going on. But I mean, if you're there already, isn't it better to, I mean, have an idea where you're going next? I think that's going to be an important part of the recruiting. I think that's going to be an important part of any bull practices that they have or don't, right? Like that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. We need to get to a break. But yeah, to get the practices, to get the evals of roster, to really be able to get some of the early guys in, to get them some practices as well, I think is a good thing. I think it just helps, man. I think it just helps. Let's get this break in though, and come back on the other side. I know we can get some basketball in. Craig did some scouting. Craig, he watched Belleville, so we can get his take on.
You sure you want me to? You sure you want me to say that?
And get his take on one Mr. Bryce Underwood as well. So we'll do that. Coming back on the other side. Stay tuned here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
You know what? I remain like this. What I saw this week is I went to 2 of the Michigan women's basketball games. They are incredible amounts of fun. And I've gone to a lot of women's games in the past. I enjoy it, but they've often been frustrating to me. Not these last couple that I saw. I mean, they have 3 freshmen who are good. I mean, really good. And she put together a really nice team. They play at the same pace that Dusty May plays at. They double always in the half court, and they don't turn it over. And, in women's basketball, not turning it over is really unusual because that's what, that's what marks those games actually, is turnover after turnover. Not this team. Now they played meatballs in the games I saw.
Craig, it was 31 turnovers for 52 points last night for Michigan.
Against LIU. LIU is terrible, but they won by 60 points, and they had, they played everyone on the roster for most of the game. But they did the same thing on the prior game. I'm trying to think of who it was. Oakland, who's a somewhat better team. But still, they played South Carolina, hasn't lost since December of 22. They're down by 2 points with 22 seconds to go in that game. And that was
currently the first team out of the top 25 poll, I believe.
Yeah. And my guess is their upside is a lot bigger than that, Ira, because they know this is a team that knows what they're doing. I don't know how talented they are, but they absolutely know what they're doing.
They're super well coached, and the hardest working team in basketball seems to be back, which is nice to see.
I hope fans discover this and come out, because those games are fun. I mean, what I saw this last 2 weeks the last 2 games were just fun. Men's team, sort of the same thing. They're fun too, but you want to, they've got some issues to deal with. Brian's article on basketball was really good this week. Yeah. So.
All right, guys, we're back in about a minute and a half.
Yeah, Michigan basketball's been fun to cover. I mean, the women's team, they just got robbed in the portal last year. Trying to imagine what they'd look like right now if they'd,
Layla.
If they had Layla, they would really be something. But I'll tell you what, that's a good. Have you seen them at all? I mean, this is something that's a little different. And I've watched Michigan basketball going back to forever. women's when Buddy, because I was good friends with Buddy Vandaway.
This is. I'm sorry, Craig. I was just laughing at
yeah.
the thing. That was not a recruiting call. That
Okay.
was home business. That was not a recruiting call.
For the listeners at home, the people on YouTube watch Sam go and take a phone call.
Yeah.
I didn't even think it was a recruiting call. I thought it was your wife, like hearing that you were talking about her shopping habits on the radio this morning.
She did. My wife did call earlier. Sometimes I do take recruiting calls on shows.
Occasionally it does happen.
That occasionally does happen. That did not happen on this show.
I'm still mystified by why the shop. I don't know.
Don't repeat it, Sam. Move on.
I don't know what he said.
We're back in about 15 seconds, and we will just move on, Sam. We don't have to get you in trouble again. Stand by.
Trouble for that.
And we're back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at the big1050.com. Before we jump right back in on the MGoBlog Roundtable, let me let you know about the great deals to be had over at Brighton Ford. Get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD to make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. That's where John Cuter and his crew will take great care of you with the deals that can't be beaten. Deals like the one on the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben 4-door, $285 a month with $3,500 down, or $417 a month with $500 down. Or how about the 2025 Ford Explorer Active, $303 a month with $3,500 down, or $460 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, the 2024 Ford F-150 XLT, $261 a month with $3,500 down, or $390 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD. Make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. All right, fellas. So let's come back to the MGoBlog Roundtable and talk a little hoops. And so, BC, I'll start with you. Dusty Maize squad off to a good start. Record-wise, now they are not getting off to a good start in these games when it comes to taking care of the basketball. They're throwing it to the other team a lot. Now, the good news is they clean it up at halftime. Ira, you got the stats in front of you? Like TCU game?
I don't have it in front of me, but it was like
it was
the first half and 22 for the game or something like that. 21.
It was 16-5.
Yeah, and then in the Miami game, it was
this was 4 in the first 3 minutes, 5 turnovers in the first 7 possessions, and then it slowed down.
Yeah, Dusty sits down and starting 5 and like at the 17-minute mark, and then the second 5 comes in and they promptly turn it over now. But they clean it up in the second half. Brian, it's good that they clean it up, but if they keep this up against better teams, that hole will be too deep. Or is this something that you think is going to be a problem moving forward, or do you think is this just an early season thing that will be quickly corrected?
Well, they don't have a guy like Xavier Simpson or Trey Burke who's going to dominate the ball and create a ton of shots for his teammates. Like, that's not something that they got. A lot of secondary guys. They have guys who were point guard-ish for their teams, but didn't carry that kind of load. And all of them had turnover rates that were like, okay, not great. So I don't think this is ever going to get to a point where they're like doing like their top 50 in turnovers, because they want to play fast. They want to get to the rim. They don't want to take mid-range shots. And all of those things increase your turnover rate. Now they also are responsible for the fact that I think Michigan is top 10 in shooting twos nationally. And they're like 66%, because when you get to the rim and you get in transition, you shoot efficiently. So like, I think they're going to have to settle down, like get familiar with each other. There's a number of turnovers where you see that the spacing isn't quite right. Like, there's guys on the perimeter who aren't in a position to shoot, and so their guy can dig off they can dig off on the perimeter and get their hands in on a driver. Danny Wolf is trying to be a primary playmaker in a way that just kind of feels uncomfortable for him, but you can see the potential there because that like big to big pick and roll, the passing angles that Danny Wolf has are crazy because he's 7 feet tall, and you just got to like stick with it because there's occasions where they toss the ball out of bounds and the two guys like look at each other like, oh, what are we doing here? And there's occasions where doubles come and the guy being doubled doesn't know where he needs to go with the ball. So this isn't a complete surprise because this is a completely new team and nobody on the team has played with each other except Namari Burnett and Will Cheddar, who aren't on the floor together very much. So to have it happen at the extent that it's happening, where they're like 350th at turnover rate, is not great. But I do think that things will improve and relatively quickly. And the trade-off is that the shots that Michigan are getting, that they actually get up, are excellent, almost universally. And so if they can bring those turnovers down to just national average, they're going to have an excellent offense.
The average turnover rate is 18%. Michigan is 24.6, which is number 346. And Danny is 37%, which is, not good. Although I believe a lot of those turnovers really aren't his. On the most recent game, he threw a beautiful bounce pass in the lane to Namari, who hit, Namari was paying no attention. And Namari is very good at cutting to the basket, incidentally. It's something he does quite well. And he did it quite well on that play, but he didn't look for the ball, and the ball rolls out of bounds. I'm hearing we don't have a point guard, but if you look at Trey Donaldson's numbers, and from my view of his play, he's a point guard. He's 3-1 in assists to turnover, which is really good at the college level. There are very few guards that do that well. His turnover percentage is low. It's below average. I think it's 15% versus the 18 that's, sort of normal. I think the pieces are there, and I do think that Donaldson has a chance to be really good, even if you use him as a classical point guard. And the Wolf, it's hard to know. He's coming into the season. Most experts and people who watch basketball a lot thought, well, these two bigs will work fine together on offense, but what do you do on defense? Well, in fact, it's been the opposite. And I think Brian pointed that out, that defensively, when they're on the court, the numbers have been fantastic in terms of points per possession. Offensively, it's not terrible, but not as good as you would expect, in part, I think, because of the turnovers. And so I wonder if they may not be better just running Donaldson with the ball a little more. The other thing that's a little bit disappointing to me has been Vlad. I expected he'd be perhaps early in the season our best player, and he's really struggled at the rim. I mean, the first two plays of the game this week were a nice pass by Donaldson over the top. Vlad was in reasonable position, got the ball, and just fanned on the layup. And then the next time down the court, I think it was from Wolf, he made a pass that was particularly good. The pass hit the net, or perhaps Vlad's hand hit the net, but it was partly because Vlad wasn't demanding the ball and coming to the ball. That should have been a dunk. And so I don't think he's posting up hard enough. I don't think he's getting his hands up in the air enough. When he's passing out of the post, he's dropping the ball down low. He's not keeping his hands up high. These are all things that are easily correctable for him. But to me, that's been a slight disappointment, although I thought he did play better in the second half. I don't know who it was of this most recent game we had.
I would like to see them. I would like to see them with Trey, sort of more Trey emphasis, some 1-5 pick and roll action,
Mm-hmm.
allowing him to be more of a focal point offensively, I think they could get more out of him if they sort of allow that to be a feature. I think Namari Burnett has, in this role, and this has been one of the points in the chat for those who are on YouTube, and it's been a very good one. He's playing to the level of who he was as a recruit, and I think a part of that has been taking the ball handling duties out of his,
not making him the point guard on a team that has
taking
no
that
wings.
off of his plate.
Yeah, he's not a good ball handler, but he does cut. He is a strong move going to the basket, and he's turned out to be a much better shooter than I would have ever imagined. I mean, he's hitting 50%. He's not going to do that in the season, but my guess is he could push 40% as a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, allowing him to play off ball is a revelation, and he has been outstanding for Michigan. And some Tim McCormick on a Basketball Insider, he said, he had been in like 4 practices earlier in the year. He's like, man, I've been to these practices. And he said, man, Namari Burnett has been the best player in practice. And if you watch in the season, it's something that Daniel Horton said. He said, man, Namari Burnett has been their best player in these games. And both things have proven to be true so far.
I mean, it took him, he had to go to Michigan for 2 years to become a great Alabama player.
Right.
What does he do? He's finishing at the rim, he's shooting threes, and he's playing defense, and like that's all you can ask for him. It's weird that it kind of what it's done to the lineup, because they have 10 guys right now. It's really 11. Yeah, I kind of figure Fat is a little bit off to the side of the other guys, but
he's played well when he's been in there.
He has, and maybe 11 because Pippen's in there too. And Kason is a roller coaster. I
want you, because we only have a couple minutes left, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I want you to tell people about the book one more time. And I don't know if there's still an opportunity for people to play.
There is. The pre-order is going to close today, but right now you can still get there. It's at mgoblog.com/victors. You'll find it from there, or it'll be right on our site, or go on Underground Printing. It will be at Underground Printing in the stores fairly soon, but give me a week to transition from the pre-sale, trying to get everybody who pre-ordered their books first. If you come tomorrow we're going to be at Venue at 6 p.m. for a signing ceremony and a book release party. I'll have a bunch of copies there, and I will have enough if you want to buy one for a few people who want to do that. So you can do it that way. You can get on the pre-sale right now and then come pick your book up tomorrow. But just let me know if you're going to do that. There's a little sign-up form on our website. You can use that, Matt. Yeah,
man. All right. Yeah, I can't wait. I know you guys did a fantastic job. And way to lift us at the end of the season, MGoBlog crew. Lifting the people. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the MGoBlog Roundtable chat crew and listeners here on the radio. That's going to do it for us today. Ira, you feeling generous on the way out? He is. Caller number 7 is 734-998-1050. You'll join us on the corner of Main and Snyder inside the Wolverine Rental Countdown and Kickoff. But you got to be caller number 7. And we'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider.